So Smart Asset has this stat about New York City cost of living. Taking all expenses into account, the cost of living in New York City is at least 68.8% higher than the national average. And if you live in Manhattan, it's more than double the national average. As you might know, I live in Manhattan. And that sounds super fancy. And that is one of the things I want to talk about today, is how we've kind of hacked our cost of living even though we live in Manhattan, and how you can make living in a big city like New York a priority even if you don't have a big budget. Hey everyone, this is Stephanie, and I am talking today about how to save on your cost of living when you live in New York City. It's all about finding those saving strategies that are going to work for you. I just say, like, don't write any strategy off without at least considering it. And also reconsider your idea of normal. So like cohabitating with people you don't know might be very uncommon wherever you're from, but in New York it's extremely common. I don't even know how many roommates I've had over the years. But not to go too far down that rabbit hole, I want to talk about how to save money in New York City. Cost number one for almost everybody, whether you're in the city or not, is your housing cost. At one point I used to live in New Jersey, and by living just over the river in a town called West New York, I was able to save a lot of money because the rents were much, much cheaper. This is true in some of the outer boroughs, although now Brooklyn I think might be outpacing Manhattan in rent. So different neighborhoods within a borough are also going to be able to give you more bang for your buck. And that's true in Manhattan as it is in Brooklyn or Queens or in the Bronx or anywhere else. So I live in Harlem, and by being a little bit further uptown, I'm able to save more money and reduce my cost of living compared to, let's say, the same apartment in Midtown or having the same apartment in the financial district that would probably be much more expensive. This is a one-bedroom apartment, and it is the top floor of a brownstone. So we have a pretty reasonably sized space, especially by Manhattan standards. And this apartment, when we moved in a few years ago, was $2,100 a month, which we split down the middle. It is now up to $2,250. I think it's been 4 years, which again, we split down the middle. We spend $1,125 each in rent. I'm reading this Business Insider article, and it says the average rent for an apartment in Manhattan is $3,667 a month. Just because that's the average doesn't mean that's what you can typically expect to pay, and it doesn't mean that there isn't anything else available, and it also doesn't mean that spending less is going to get you a closet. I actually have a friend who used to rent out a space, and it would cover not only that space, but also his space, so he didn't pay rent for something like years while living here. You just want to do it in a way that you're, following the rules of your building, following the rules of the city, and if you are earning actual rental income, then, reporting that income appropriately. It's just about considering what are the trade-offs you're willing to make, and if you are trying to come to a city like New York and you are on a tight budget, housing is the place to make those trade-offs, right? Because your housing cost is generally going to be your largest cost. So if you can save there, you can have a really big impact on the rest of your budget. Now, speaking of spending on other things, one of the other major benefits to living in New York City that lets you save is public transportation. The thing is, you don't need to own a car if you live in New York City by and large, which can save you a lot of money every single month. I think the average cost of car ownership between maintenance and insurance fees and gas and all that comes out to about $900 a month. If you're not spending that $900 a month on a car, that gives you a lot more flexibility in your spending plan to spend on other things. And you can use that money instead to fund those expenses that are a little higher in New York City. Let's talk about healthcare. Now, if you're like me and you don't have great health insurance or you don't have benefits like dental, that's a big one, then New York City also has great low-cost clinics. I personally used NYU's School of Dentistry. I got a lot of my fillings done there. I've had cleanings done there. I actually had my dental implant surgery at NYU's dental school, and it was much less than it would cost at a typical dentist's office paying out of pocket. I will also link to a list of low-cost healthcare resources in and around New York City because I know healthcare costs can add up to a lot, even if you do have insurance. So it's great to live in a city that has access to so many resources, more affordable alternatives. All right, let's talk about food. Obviously, one of the most effective saving strategies, no matter where you are, is to cook all of your meals. Grocery prices in New York, I will definitely say, are higher than I have seen outside of New York. But if you make a good habit out of maximizing your groceries, shopping savvy, cooking at home, you can still come in at a reasonable amount on your food spending. I will say that the happy hour specials and the lunch specials I see in New York are often better than I find anywhere else. Not anywhere else. There's just so many of them. And then we always have our classic cheap eats, like the falafel shops down in the East Village, or taco shops, or noodle shops. There's just so many of those places where you can still find a great bargain on a meal. Okay, so let's talk about fun. This is where I think living in a big city is such a perk. There are so many free or really low cost activities, parks, I don't know, everything. What do I got here? I got New York Public Library. New York Public Library not only has books, but they also have programming. Like, they teach classes of all kinds. They'll also have guest lecturers. They'll have like yoga classes. The events calendar of New York Public Library and also New York City parks are a treasure trove of free resources, classes, entertainment. I really can't recommend it enough. We also have wonderful city parks, good for fun, it's good for fitness. In the summer, we have free kayaking on the Hudson River. This is an example of one of those things that you might find by checking out the city's parks and recreation calendar. There's a whole list. I'll try to find the list of free days and hours for the museums, or discounts for the museums, and I'll link to that below in the description. Just Googling free activities in New York City, you're gonna find so many things to do, probably every single day. There's actually one website called theskint.com that rounds up a lot of the free and cheap activities. I saw like a free Mariah Carey concert in Central Park once because it was on there. So, you know, there's just so many really cool things happening all the time, every single day. And a lot of them are low or no cost. So let's talk about personal care. In addition to working out, running in the parks, taking a discount or donation-based yoga class, for example, at, what's it called? Yoga to the People. A lot of the stores, like I think Lululemon and Nike both do free fitness classes on certain days. So check out some of the retailers in different neighborhoods. They'll often have free classes, free perks. One of my favorite resources is called Salon Apprentice. And Salon Apprentice is available in various cities, but I use the one in New York City, and basically what I do on Salon Apprentice is book all of my haircuts. Salon Apprentice is really just a resource for cosmetology schools to find people willing to be hair models, or, you know, models for whatever they need. I actually just got this haircut yesterday, no, 2 days ago, by a student at a cosmetology school downtown, and it was totally free. I gave her a tip. I have had free coloring done, or low-cost coloring done. I've had blowouts for free. I mean, it's such a great resource. I don't know the last time like I paid for a real haircut. It's probably been about 10 years. People come to New York to train in various disciplines, so if you can be kind of a guinea pig for those people, then you can get services for free or for cheap at a great value. We also have a ton of amazing thrift stores. There's a lot of people with a lot of money who live in New York City, so their secondhand items are generally very, very nice, and you can get them at a significant discount if you go thrifting in those neighborhoods. I might not be able to live there, but I can afford to thrift there. I also love the free attractions in New York City, right? So when people are like, oh, I'm coming to New York for a week, what do you recommend doing? My recommendations are always free things, not just because I'm budget conscious, but because the things I honestly love the most are often free. I love to walk around different neighborhoods. I love to walk the Brooklyn Bridge. I love biking and running in Central Park, or going up and down Hudson River Park, taking the Staten Island ferry back and forth. All of these things are free. Just so much you can consume without actually spending money. So in that regard, I think New York is just such a special place, and it can be overwhelming. Like, I'm not saying it's all perfect all the time. There's things that I would 100% change. I wish I had more money to do all the things I want to do. I'm not denying that it can be difficult and it can be expensive, but one of the things I like to say is sometimes New York is as expensive as you make it. It's really easy to spend $100 on a dinner if you're not paying attention. But you can also spend $5 on a dinner and have a full meal. And I could say the same with pretty much any budget category, right? It's really easy to spend hundreds of dollars on taxis, but like, I don't think I took a taxi in New York like for at least 6 years, because like I didn't even think of it as something that I could do. It's just really about thinking where you want to save, where you want to splurge, what trade-offs are you willing to make. And you know, if living in New York City itself is a priority for you, you probably can make it work. I don't like to say you certainly can make it work. Everyone has different circumstances. If you're supporting a family, for example, with many kids, that's a whole different set of challenges and expenses that I can't speak to, right? And that's going to be a lot more challenging. But are there people who do it? of course. And yeah, there are people who do it on more, and there are people who do it on less. There are people who do it with more challenges. There are people who do it with fewer. This is more of a benefit of living in New York City, but by living in the city and having a smaller space to live, I find it forces me to be a lot more conscious about my consumption. Because I live in a one-bedroom that I share, I'm literally not able to buy a lot of stuff I don't need because I don't have anywhere to put it. And because of that restriction, I find I really don't buy a lot. Like, we just went on a 2-week vacation and we were in all these different countries and I didn't buy a single souvenir. That's not always the case. Occasionally we'll buy something if I can use it in some capacity. For example, when we were in Portugal last year, I bought a wallet, a cork wallet, because I can use it. And when we were in Mexico a couple of years ago, I bought that thing where you know, when you're cooking and you need to put your, like, dirty spoon down, but you don't want to put it on the stove. I bought one of those things that you can put it on. I don't even know what that is. But again, it was something useful. Like, it was local and useful. But I don't buy things just for the sake of buying things because I don't have the space. If I can't, like, hang it on my wall or use it in some way, then it's not really practical for city living. It really forces me to think about the true value something's going to add to my life, not just in terms of the money it costs, but in terms of this time it costs to maintain and the space, which is at a premium in New York, that it costs to store or to use. In that way, New York has had this added benefit, making me save by, you know, really forcing me to consider how much I'm consuming in the first place. I will also say that living in New York City has enabled me to grow my business and to grow my income in a way that not living here would make very difficult. I'm not saying you can't run a business outside of New York City. Of course you can. I'm not saying you can't do anything outside New York City. You can, you know, you can do a lot of the things outside of a big city that you can do in a big city. That said, you know, being here constantly at the center of so many events, being able to connect with people very easily, just taking the subway to go see someone and have a meeting. There's a lot of industry happening here, a lot of decision makers are here. I do a lot of media, so for me, like, it's about a television producer calling me and saying, can you be at the studio in a half an hour? And I'm like, yeah, I can be. One of the things when people ask me about what I've done to grow my business and to grow my brand and to grow my presence, I attribute so much of that success to living in New York City. I really can't overstate how much value the location and living in this location and in proximity to so much has enabled me to scale my career and to scale my income. And so in that regard, I think that's the other really important thing to consider. Of course, there are trade-offs, very high cost of living. I pay a lot of taxes. Do I think it's worth it? Obviously, I do. I'm still here. It might not be my forever location, but there are ways to make living in New York City work for you. There are ways to save money and pay a reasonable rent and reasonable transportation fees and reasonable food costs, even in New York City. And I think that if you want to make it work, you should start considering what trade-offs you're willing to make it happen. I hope you now have a few ideas of maybe potential ways you can save in New York City. I'm actually going to link in the description below to a handout I have of a full list of ways to save in New York City. It's a downloadable list, so you can hold on to it, whether you're living here already or whether you want to move here. If you enjoyed the video or you think it could help somebody out, I hope you'll like it. I hope you'll share it. And please subscribe to the channel. And, you know, if you have a saving strategy I didn't talk about, I want to hear it. So let me know in the comments. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.